Okay, so today we are taking another step to make grocery prices more affordable in Manitoba. It's another step towards bringing fairness back to the market here in our province. So we've announced in the budget this year that we're going to be cutting the sales tax on all food and drinks that's sold at grocery stores and corner stores. In the province of Manitoba, we've frozen the price of milk. We're cracking down on surveillance pricing. And now today we're taking another step when it comes to the property controls that are squeezing out competitors from driving down the cost of groceries here in our province. So a lot of people may not know this, but some of the big grocery chains over the years in Manitoba have been using property controls, meaning contracts on their real estate deals, to prevent competitors from setting up shop nearby. Now, we passed a law in 2025 to force these companies to register these property controls with us, and that will allow us to challenge them. Today, we're announcing that we're challenging the first 4 of these remaining property controls. And by the way, most of the big grocery chains dropped these property controls when we passed this law, all except one, Sobeys. And so the 4 locations we're talking about today are all within that company's purview. So today, Minister Sandhu and our government are announcing that we're challenging property controls at 4 locations. 2 of them are in Winnipeg, 1 is in Steinbach, 1 is in Brandon. And just to give you an idea, Minister Sandhu will talk a bit more about this in detail. But to talk about the Steinbach location in particular, there's actually 4 different property controls in place here, and they extend beyond actually the property where the grocer is located. It extends into a farmer's field nearby, it extends across the street, and it goes out to the 2040s for one of them and to the 2060s, if you can imagine that, for another one of these property controls. So that means that there's no competitor allowed to set up shop even in the farmer's field or even across the street, a long ways away from where this grocer is actually doing business. So we don't think that that's in the public interest, and that's why we're taking action. I think we all understand when there's more competition, there are better prices. That's why everybody likes to price match, right? And at the end of the day, if this wasn't benefiting the company's bottom line, they wouldn't be doing it. And therefore, if we can take action to break up some of these property controls, it's going to lead to lower prices in Manitoba. So, Minister Sandhu, take it away.
Thank you, Premier. More competition means better prices for you and your family. That's why we are cracking down on property control by big grocery companies here in Manitoba. Last year, we brought in a historical legislation to ban any future property control and require companies to register existing controls. And as a result of that legislation, 1/3 of the existing controls were voluntarily removed. Right now, 43 remain in place, all held by the same company. But we are not willing to wait for years of loss of these anti-competition contracts to expire. But while big chains make record profit, and your grocery will keep going up. Thanks to our legislation, we can now bring a case against Sobeys to the municipal board, who can strike down these property controls if they are against the public interest. And let me be clear. Each and every one of these predatory property control is against public interest. Because when we let a company like Sobeys block competition, it makes it easier for them to raise prices. We gave Sobeys the chance to do the right thing and voluntarily put a stop to this anti-competition practices in Manitoba. They refused. That's why today we are bringing our first case against these companies' property controls. We are going to fight every single one of them. Years of rising grocery prices are squeezing Manitoba families. We are going to take every action available to us to get these costs down. We are taking the PST of all groceries. We froze the price of milk. We are banning predatory pricing so big grocery companies cannot use your data to charge you more. And today, we are taking another step to fight back against predatory practices by the big chains so we can get costs down for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Minister Sandhu. So why don't we start with questions on this topic, and then once we've exhausted those, we can move on to other topics.
If the willingness of some of them to drop their property controls willingly without a fight, does that not indicate there just might not be as big of a concern or as big of a stranglehold as you might be indicating it is?
They wouldn't do it if it didn't help their bottom line. And their bottom line is money out of your pocket, right? So this is an important step for us to take to help competition. More competition leads to lower grocery prices.
For Mr. Sandhu, did you end up meeting with the CEO of Empire? And if so, like when and how did that go?
As I said previously, I'm a regional minister. Our government is a regional government, and the offer was there for the company CEO to meet us. And has given enough time. I think we have to move it to our next process. So that's why we are taking these 4 properties to the municipal board. And yes, they didn't meet us.
And do you have a timeline as for like when you think you'll get results from these 4?
My expectations are like we will get a quick result on these property controls.
Did you get any response at all from Empire? Was it a refusal? Was it any kind of yes but or no, and why?
Well, again, we are on the side of Manitobans. We are listening to Manitobans. Affordability is the number one thing right now we are hearing from Manitobans. We want to make sure we deliver on that priority. To answer you directly, I did not get the response.
Nothing. What's the plan after these 4 go forward? Like, is the plan to end up taking on all the property controls?
Yes, every single one of these properties will be going to the municipal board, and we are starting with the 4 of these ones. Again, the price of groceries are so high, and they are blocking the competition from the market. We want to make sure there's more competition in the market.
So just to be clear, the 4 ones, they've been sitting empty? Is that it, or?
Yes, 4 of them. One on Leela is sitting empty. No, it's one on Leela is there. They have a property control on Leela. Brandon is sitting empty. Steinbach, as Premier has indicated, they have a property control pretty much on the farmland as well. And Premier, which one, the 3rd or 4th one?
Sage Creek.
Sage Creek, yes. Sage Creek, they have store, but they have a property control on the adjacent land.
Why target these, just these locations at first, like rather than throw them all to the municipal board at once?
Well, thank you, Ian. Again, we want to make sure we don't put too much pressure on our municipal board either, but we want to proceed with caution. And we want to make sure we deliver on Manitobans' priorities. The priority is rising food prices, and we want to see a more competition in the market. And we are going after these 4. We'll make sure there's more competition into those proper properties.
Have you seen it impact food prices for the companies that have gotten rid of them? Like, I mean, inflation numbers are still high for Manitoba, so have you actually seen that impact the cost of groceries?
Well, again, as Premier indicated, they are keeping these property controls in place because they're making profit. They don't want the competition come into the market. By getting rid of these property controls, we are bringing more competition into the market. So in return, we will have lower grocery prices.
Have you noticed any grocery stores popping up, or has there been any talks of that with the ones where the property controls have come off?
Well, we want to make sure we get rid of these 43 of them, and so there's going to be more competition in the market. And again, they are blocking the competition from coming into the market, and we are going after Sobeys to make sure there's more competition in the market.
There was a location on Burroughs that was empty for a decade, and it's being reported as a good news story. But the flip side of that reporting is that you had a company paying the lease on a location for a decade. So who do you think is actually paying that cost? It's you when you go to the other locations for that chain, right? And so as we take action here, we are expecting the municipal board to turn these decisions around within about 6 to 8 weeks. So I think that's a reasonable time to get an important step forward here. And this will play out over the coming years. Obviously, if a property control gets struck down, competition isn't going to rush in the following day. It's going to take some time for the business case to be built and for a new tenant to set up shop. But over the long term, this will drive down grocery prices. And that's why it's part of an overall strategy that also included freezing the price of milk, taking the PST off of all food and drinks from grocery stores and corner stores, and then other steps like cracking down on surveillance pricing. Some of those things will take immediate pressure off of your bank account and off of your monthly grocery bills, like the PST cut will impact inflation in a positive way immediately. Some of these other steps will take months and years, but we have to do everything together to try and help you and your family.
Do you believe these 4 locations are the most likely to generate a change or more competition? Like, did that influence the decision?
Well, the specific language that Minister Sandhu is using is that these property controls are not in the public interest. They don't serve the public good. And so we believe that these 4 will be successful in front of the municipal board, that the municipal board will agree that, yeah, it's not in the public good to maintain these property controls.
Do you then, if these 4 go through, then do you, the remaining, you said there was 43 of these stores or that have these property controls, then do you go after all of them, or are you doing it in stages?
We will be, again, my hope is after we are successful in 4 of these ones, the Sobeys reconsider and drop themselves off and say, hey, you know what, let the competition begin and let's have more competition. Let the grocery prices be lower in Manitoba. And again, this was a historical legislation considering this is the first one ever in Canada. So again, that's my hope, you know, for them to reconsider again, just dropping all those property controls.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, s'il vous plaît, en français, est-ce que vous pourriez résumer brièvement ce qui concerne le contrôle des propriétés et votre stratégie par rapport à ça?
Oui, tout le monde dans la province veut une vie plus abordable et on voit surtout qu'on fait du magasinage, acheter de la nourriture, que les coûts ont vraiment augmenté pendant les dernières 5 ans. Alors cette étape pour essayer d'appuyer vous en tant que les consommateurs va réussir à créer une vie plus abordable, surtout avec la nourriture. On voit des 4 édifices aujourd'hui, mais on espère qu'on pourrait appuyer le public dans notre province pour voir une situation où il n'aura aucune restriction sur les propriétés.
If we could shift to the landfill search, Premier.
Yeah.
The search officially ended in July. I guess it's taken some time to reach this stage. I mean, what has happened between the end of the search to this official decommissioning?
Yeah. So the big goal that we were able to deliver on, that Manitobans wanted us to see happen, was to return the remains of Morgan and Mercedes to their families. In the process of having a very safe and environmentally sound and thorough process, we also had to go through a lot of decommissioning. This is going to continue to be a landfill that operates, and Returning it to that normal operation meant removing the search facility that we had constructed on site, removing the healing space for the families that we had established, and then a bunch of other basically remediation type activities. And then, of course, the bookkeeping. And so now we can say that the Prairie Green landfill search has been fully completed. We've remediated our presence on the Prairie Green landfill, and we've also done all the accounting for the costs. And to me, it is significant. I think everybody should think it's significant, actually, that the final total cost, just by coincidence, was $18.4 million, which is exactly 1/10 of what the PCs said it was going to cost. So over the course of the past few years, we've systematically shown that this landfill search was possible, that it could be done with respect for the environment and could be done safely, and that it could be done in a very financially responsible fashion. And so all of the various arguments that the PCs tried to make their last election campaign about have been disproven, which leads me to conclude that this was never about cost. This leads me to conclude that this was never about cost. This was never about safety. This was never about feasibility. This was always about racism. Oui. Alors, nous avons vu dans les dernières quelques années que fouiller le dépotoir était possible, que c'était possible de le faire dans une façon qui respecte la sécurité des emplois et aussi qu'on pourrait le faire dans une façon qui respecte tout qui paie les impôts dans la province. Alors, si c'était un projet sécuritaire, un projet possible, un projet qu'on pourrait livrer dans une façon responsable envers les finances, on voit que les politiques des conservateurs étaient seulement une politique de racisme.
Premier, can you talk a little bit about what's happening at the Brady Road search, as far as you know?
Yeah, for sure. So the Brady Road search for Ashley Shingus continues. I think the biggest update that I can share is, as we speak here today at Brady, the search technicians are using very similar techniques to what we saw at the Prairie Green landfill, and we are seeing the date ranges and the geographic ranges match our targeted zone. What I mean by that is, as the search technicians go through the landfill material, when they see the date on something like a milk carton, it matches the date range of where Ashley Shingus would have been transported there. When we look at something like an envelope that would have somebody's hydro bill or phone bill in it, it matches the route where those trucks would have been active during that time period. So we know we're in the right area of the landfill. It's now just a very time-consuming effort of searching the material to find, we hope, the remains of Ashley Shingus so that we can bring closure to her family, or potentially other items that might help us zero in the search further.
Maybe elaborate on that point, because I think you had first mentioned in January that there were promising signs, and there were a few months. So just I guess having to go through all of that, we're months in now, and
yeah.
So what? Yeah.
It's a big city, and so there's a lot of materials, and as a result. We continue to zero in, but there is a lot of material there that fits within this date range and within this geographic range. Beyond that, what we've learned is that every search is different. And we've always maintained as a government that there's a values question here around, do we want to be the province where if somebody goes missing, we go looking? And we say yes. So if you think about searching for somebody who goes missing at sea or in water, you would assume that each lake or ocean or river is going to be different. Somebody goes missing in the bush, you'd assume that each search in the bush is going to be different. And now we are understanding in a very direct way that searching different landfills leads you to different conditions. So when we searched Prairie Green in the past, there was more commercial waste there, which led search technicians to move at a certain pace. Now we're searching at Brady through more residential waste, which is leading them to use the same meticulous level of attention to detail, but it means that they're proceeding at a slower pace as a result.
And how long do you keep searching? Is there until the snow falls, or what's the time frame that you're looking at?
Well, it's still according to roughly the same time frame that we've always been talking about, which is throughout this calendar year. But no final determination has been made, because we'll be making that along with the family and the Winnipeg Police and our other partners in this. But the hope is always that we will find Ashley long before we get to having to have those conversations.
You've always said that there's no guarantee.
That's it.
That you do want to search. What's your level of confidence at this stage?
Well, when we were searching Prairie Green, you may remember that we would always say, we can't guarantee, but we're going to try. And today, putting out the bulletin that the Prairie Green landfill search has been wrapped up, even as far as the logistics, I can't really believe it to a certain extent. There were times during the advocacy and preparation period, the trial, where I didn't really think we'd ever get to this point, but we have. We've returned Morgan and Mercedes to their families. The families have had funerals and ceremonies, and so looking at Ashley's family and the search of Brady, I feel the same hopefulness that we can bring about some closure, some healing for them, but recognizing the reality that this is a different search, and we can't guarantee any outcome as bad as we may want it.
Another topic. Just about gas tax holiday. You had talked about seeing what happens, and around this time we were expecting maybe you might have an answer or a decision about whether to reinstitute a gas tax holiday or take some measures with regard to gas prices, because it doesn't appear that they're going down anytime soon. We've got the federal tax break, but what about Manitoba?
Still under active consideration, and driving by gas prices that were $1.88 in some locations. I think there is still a case to be made. The challenge, as I see it, is we don't know what is going to happen in Iran or the Strait of Hormuz. We don't know what Donald Trump and what the Iranian regime are going to do there, and we're left paying the price. So we help Manitobans potentially by taking affordability steps like reducing the gas tax, but we also help by investing in healthcare, hiring more nurses and doctors. And when we take money to do one thing, it potentially limits the ability to act in other ways, or we have to increase borrowing. So, there is a bit of hesitancy to say, like, we're going to move in this way, because we really have no control what Donald Trump's going to do, and we've seen over his time in office that he's quite erratic. That said, I think we are in territory where the average family is suffering because of international events raising the cost of living, and I think the reason why we're taking a bit of time, and I would ask Manitobans to be patient, is we want any intervention that we make to really make a difference. You saw the federal government cut taxes, the prices dropped for like a day or two, and then they were right back at the same level. I wouldn't want us, knowing the financial cost of making an investment like this, I wouldn't want us to do the same thing. And then you've got fertilizer costs for the ag producers to think about. You've got the knock-on effects of rising fuel prices on the grocery costs that you face. you know, we want our intervention to be well timed and to really help you with the cost of living. So still actively considering the gas tax situation in Manitoba to help you keep your life more affordable. At the same time, if this is a situation where we're going to be facing high gas prices for the rest of this calendar year, and it might be leading to higher costs at the grocery store, what is the best tool that we have to help you there? You know, and so maybe it would be the gas tax, or maybe there's a targeted subsidy that we have to look at later in this year to help people with rising costs. At this stage, I think we have to be nimble and respond to what is a unique and novel situation. When we cut it the first time, we were responding to a period of high inflation that had persisted for a few years at that point. We managed to bring inflation down in Manitoba. This situation is different, right? Different causes, similar pain point for you when you're going to the grocery store, you're going to the pump. But we want to make sure that if we're going to invest significant resources in helping you out in this additional way, responding to Trump's war in Iran, that it's going to really make a difference. So yeah, we're still trying to figure out the best path forward here.
What's your timeline now? You initially told us about a month. I think it's been 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, so I guess we still got a week or more. But
you're still planning?
No, not necessarily. I'm just kind of making a lighthearted comment. Timeline-wise, listen, if there's a quick resolution in Iran and all of a sudden we see even stability with oil prices, then I think that would help. If this situation in Iran persists heading into summer and then all of a sudden we are dealing with a longer-term price hike, then I think, we're going to have to take additional time to figure out what is the best way to counter this long-term.
When you talked about a subsidy, did you mean for drivers? Did you mean for, like, where would you see that?
Groceries, potentially.
More grocery subsidy.
Yeah. Well, this would be from the public health world. So folks have seen that we're cutting the cost of your grocery bill by removing the sales tax from all food and drinks at the store, whether it's corner store, grocery store. But then people also say, well, why are you raising it off or taking it off everything, not just the salads and the healthy stuff, but also, pop and whatever. And, our thing is we just want to help you save money right now, and then we can have other policy measures to help with the healthy food or more affordable healthy food. And when you talk to folks in those worlds, they say that, from a public health perspective, lowering the price of healthy food, okay, but giving people a subsidy to buy healthy food might be the more effective intervention there. So that's something that we're potentially looking at.
Geared to income, would it be?
Potentially, yeah.
Any other questions?
On your social media ban, do you think it's a contradictory message to have your government, frequently use social media to get its message across, while at the same time talking about a ban for youth?
We say that children can't drink beer, and yet we participate in a society where pretty much everyone except me drinks beer. So it's kind of the same logic. I think the reason why we haven't said we're banning social media from all Manitobans, we've never said that, but we are saying we want to ban it for youth, is because there are particularly acute mental health problems that young people are facing because of social media, and it's happening at a time when their brains are developing. And so we've looked at issues like alcohol consumption, cannabis consumption, smoking, vaping, and decided, because kids and teenagers are still growing, that it's really, really important that they not take in those substances. And now I think after, we're a couple generations deep in social media users in our society now, I think we can make the judgment, this is something that can have a really harmful impact. And particularly while the brain is developing in those early years, we should restrict access to it, along the same lines of why we would prevent a young person from drinking alcohol or vaping or consuming cannabis or any of the other prohibitions that we put on young people in our society.
Is there a role for government past that age of 16? Because I don't think the harms of social media stop at that age.
And the brain continues developing until you're 25, or in my case, a lot longer than that. It took me a lot longer to figure out a few things. I think there is. What we've said, including with youth, is that we want to take an approach on education. When we're talking about accountability, I think the accountability should be for the very, very wealthy tech elites who have designed these products knowing that they're addictive, knowing that they're getting young people and people of all ages hooked on screen time. But when we talk about the family, when we talk about the child, I want it to be about education. And so, yeah, I think the education around social media shouldn't stop at 16. Should include everybody. And I think just as with a lot of people who do a dry January or different things like that, a lot of us, maybe through this conversation, are thinking, yeah, I probably should reduce the screen time, or maybe I'm thinking twice about the role that some of these platforms like Facebook or TikTok has on my mental health and the health of our society. So education will be important, and I think while we take this step, one of the interesting things is a lot of people from the health world have reached out to us. And so as we move forward with legislation and the other policy steps here, I'm hoping that we can have some of those, physicians and health experts stand with us to talk about the real life health impacts of social media and AI chatbots, so that you can make an informed choice about your kids' use of these technologies, but also about your own use. I'm not sure if the average person out there knows that for decades now, some of these companies have hired thousands of people who have an expertise in brain science and what keeps you scrolling to design their products. And when you think about things from that perspective, you have this hugely well-resourced, very well-optimized machine that is pointed at your child, trying to keep them scrolling. Who's there with the child on their behalf? Right now it's mom and dad. It's the parents, it's the family. Well, I think it's the role of the government and the society to step in as well, too, and try to balance out the playing field there a little bit.
Just to be clear, it's under 16 that you were talking about for the social media ban. So if you're old enough to drive, if you're old enough to get a driver's license, you should be old enough to handle social media, yeah?
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
So are you guys considering rolling out a public health campaign then in regards to social media and AI chatbots, like when you're talking about working with health officials?
Yeah, well, yeah, I wouldn't separate them though. Like I think the ban and the legislation and all the steps we're going to take is part of the public health campaign. Reviewing the research that's been done here, talking to people in the know, including Manitoba experts. You ask them what needs to be done. Banning phones from the classroom, banning people under 16 from using social media are some of the most important interventions that they point to. So these are different tools we have in the toolbox, and public service announcements, informational campaigns, trying to amplify the message of physicians and public health experts when they speak out on these things. Those will all be part of what we try to do. At the end of the day, the other thing, this is maybe a little esoteric or whatever, but when the internet first came out, and yes, I'm old enough to remember when the internet first came out in terms of being broadly accessible at home, not just in a university or whatever. When it first came out, the promise was like the internet is going to democratize everything. It's going to make everything free. It's going to make society better. Everyone's going to have perfect access to information, and it's going to make the average person have so much more power in our society. And now the exact opposite has happened. We have the unprecedented concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few American tech bros, basically. And the rest of us are dealing with the anxiety, the depression, the body shaming, the self-doubt, the self-esteem, and we're seeing our kids suffer, and in some cases self-harm, as a result of what was supposed to be a transformatively democratic technology. So when you're asking a question about Is our policy goal going to be expansive? Yes, absolutely it will be. And hopefully this is just part of a broader societal conversation about how we can take back control over our digital lives and privacy.
Just following up on Ian's question, will you and your ministers be using your social media accounts to get the message out about social media?
We have been so far. Yeah.
Any reflections though on
Yeah.
when we talk about all these harms of social media, as we've done for the past few minutes, and yet your government has used social media, you know, quite a bit more significantly than the last government here in Manitoba. You have staff devoted to social media and digital video, etc. Do you see a change of strategy, or no?
It is a question that I've been thinking about a lot. And I think you're a part of the conversation too, all of you. Because the reason that government uses social media is because you as the legacy media do not have the reach that you used to in society. And that's why you use social media too and experiment with digital platforms. So I would love for there to be an alternative to speaking to people via Meta and YouTube and TikTok's platforms, and we're doing the 25% investment in local media that the All-Party Journalism Committee recommended. But what is the alternative? We knock on doors, like we do that too. We do mail outs, but what's happening to Canada Post right now? So I think we should recognize that the real step here is to try and pull that safety alarm when it comes to children and youth and get a handle on the mental health impacts for them while kicking off a broader conversation about our society and how are we going to be able to still communicate in the manner that we are accustomed to while hopefully taking back more control of our data, of our privacy, of our mental health. These are not easy questions, nor do I think we'll solve them quickly, but yeah, we do have to contemplate a life beyond the current structure of how the tech platforms have figured out how to monetize our attention.
Is there a quota? Are your ministers required to post certain times?
No.
Per week or month?
No.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks guys.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Good job, Mintu. Right on.